All right, Steiny, we're going. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. You couldn't stay retired, eh? You had to jump back into the game. You just couldn't stay put.
Well, I'm using it. They dragged me back in because I didn't
Today?
expect this. Yeah, I didn't expect it at all. It was actually all just because of COVID with the bubble and
Yeah.
Mike Dawson, an old name from the past, one of my players that came my first year from Acadia to take his MBA. He's been in pro scouting, so he's with Seattle, and they asked if he knew anybody, and thank God they didn't do too many reference checks.
That's when I think of ISCO right now, I think of one of the hardest jobs in hockey. And whenever we have young guys come on the show and we talk about the NHL draft next year, there's like a couple names that pop up, but for the most part, it's kind of we're all just shooting the shit because nobody really knows who's who. Nobody knows what's going on in other parts of the world. But that's your job. It must, in my history of hearing what's happening, it must be very difficult for what you're doing right now. That was a long question.
Yeah. I mean, I've always respected the scouts, but in fact, it's not something I ever truly wanted to be because it's so much of a guessing game. There's so many intangibles, and you can go with analytics, you can go with whatever, but at some point, it's you putting your what on the line to say you think that kid can play, and if you're right, they're going to invest an awful lot of money in him, and if you're wrong, then it's a wasted draft pick of something that could be of high potential.
And a lot of coaches, even scouts that come on here, they always talk about the personality of a player being a huge role, rather than the skill, don't get me wrong, is there, but the personality of a guy who's 18 years old getting drafted in the first round, that has a huge factor to do with it. Is that a challenging factor for you right now as well?
It's
because you got to call coaches, you got to call trainers. How does that even work?
It's huge. I mean, when you look at a kid now, the first and second rounders, they just pop off at you.
Yeah.
And even then, you still have to know what they're like as a person because, you're thinking that person's going to be a part of your program, and if he's selfish or if he's lazy or whatever. But when you get down into the lower rounds, sometimes that's the only thing you have in your corner because they're all the same. You're watching a kid play in the elite league in Sweden or in a junior league in Russia, and then you're trying to compare him to a kid that plays major junior A, and then another kid that plays tier 2 out west that's waiting for a scholarship. You can't. It's really difficult to figure out who's a better skater, who's a bigger this or that. So sometimes it's just that intestinal fortitude that they may show on the ice, but certainly in an interview or something like that, you might say that this kid's got a story. There's a reason why this kid's going to pack a big punch, or he's spoiled and never seen adversity, right?
Yeah. I never thought of it from that perspective. Rounds 3 and down, there's not a lot of huge difference of players. It's personality. I never thought of it from that perspective. Oddly enough, I thought the guy that got drafted in the 7th round was worse than the guy that got drafted in the 4th round. Because if you're a hockey fan looking on the outside in, that's what you'd assume. You're not thinking scouts are going, they're all somewhat the same mix. It's just a personality trait.
Honestly, sometimes it's a crapshoot. It really is, and that's what we're expected. And I'm learning that right now, how to take a little bit of the crapshoot out of it. And there are so many kids out there that are better right now. They're doing really well right now, say in major junior.
Yeah.
And you've got scouts say, well, he's not. That game doesn't project. He's a point a game here now. He won't play. He'll never sign. And then you're some big defenseman that's clumsy over there. They'll say, I like that kid.
Yeah.
The first little while I was like,
yeah.
And then you realize later, okay, the kid's 16. In 4 years, the kid's going to be a beast. And that's what you're trying to do.
Okay.
And
predict the future a little bit.
Yeah. Exactly. That's all you're doing. You're predicting the future. Yeah.
Have you, the skill set that you had at 23 years being the head coach of St. Mary's, you know what it's like in a hockey dressing room. You know how to manage people. You know how to lead people. But was there any skill set that you learned from those 23 years at SMU that you've taken to the scouting side?
Yeah, I think there's always a lesson you've seen because you've got so many stories of, you can argue for a kid on either side of the table. There's a big, strong kid, and he's a little slow right now. So you realize, okay, you can't play the game if you can't skate now. But now you got to project his speed and so forth. But sometimes it's just his personality. And I'd say I've got 23 years of experience. I made a lot of mistakes when I was a coach. I don't think you have to scratch that surface too far to get some answers, but you Yeah, I more mean that you just learn from all your mistakes. You know,
So you're making mistakes right now. Is what
I'm
you're
guaranteed.
like, yeah.
I know I've made some now, but to say that nobody knows for another 4 years, and if you've made a mistake.
Oh yeah,
Truly.
that's interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I mean, I've had some issues with players that I didn't think worked hard or this or that, and I wouldn't say I gave up, but I certainly gave them a harder time than I did players that worked their rear ends off and just didn't have the talent right.
Yeah.
Because I don't really think it's what it's what potential you have to give to your team, and not just what you give. If you've got more to give it.
Is there any advice that you're taking from someone else within the Seattle organization, or just anyone across hockey right now? Because I'm sure you've had tons of advice given to you as a coach, but as a scout, has anyone given you advice? Talk to his dad, see if his dad's a dick. Is there anything like that? Little tips you picked up?
They ask for everything.
Yeah.
They ask for everything. And there's guys right now that I would go to bat for that are in the Maritimes here right now that didn't get drafted, because I know deep down
they'll do anything.
They got
to
it,
win.
man.
Yeah.
They got it.
Yeah.
Who were we just talking about this year? He's playing for not Hershey, but he's playing the American League now. He just got his first game. Was
Liam Shane Bowers.
I just can't believe it. He's
in the A for Colorado.
Yeah, he played his first game the other day, and I can't eat Brennan Saunier.
Did he play his first game?
Their coach. I phoned his coach up, who I played with. He played here, Scott Gordon.
No way.
Scott Gordon is a coach there. I phoned Scott Gordon up and said, do your homework on this kid. He's a good player. He'll do anything. He'll do anything for the team. He did a little research on him. He said, can't promise anything. And he just sent me a text 2 days ago, said he played his first game.
Get the fuck out.
And he did out, yeah. And he's...
Sans, if you're listening, buddy, congrats. I'm sorry I didn't know. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and you know something? I say congrats too, because Son's a guy like that he makes more sacrifice than anybody. He's a $180. He fights anybody. He does everything it takes, and that's why I guess you kind of think is if you could put that into some of these kids, if the kids only knew that's the difference in them being drafted or not drafted or going in the 4th round or the 2nd round.
Yeah,
is just that intestinal fortitude or that commitment level to do the things that they don't want to do.
Yeah,
the uglier things of the game. That can get them up the ladder, but everybody wants to practice what they're good at, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a dying breed, Sans, being able to go through adversity and get to that point of where he's at now. I'm sitting here in shock. I can't believe that. That's awesome.
American Hockey League,
that's
man.
fun.
He was doing great, and I think...
Did you listen to the podcast we did with Sean OBrien, Liam O'Brien's dad? Did you listen to that?
I listened to a little bit of it. I'm such a fan. I'm a big fan of Sean, but what Liam's done is just carved himself out. He is what everybody thinks he is. He's an unbelievable guy. He's a good human being. You see what he does with charity. You see what he does in his communities. That's his mom and dad and so forth like that. And then I don't know where he gets that competitive and the toughness from. Yeah. When I say that, I say it respectfully. This kid is a beast, and he's just done it for years. It's got him into the NHL at times when most people thought that he would be a marginal university player maybe.
Yeah.
So, there's a guy right there most people wouldn't have drafted.
Yeah.
But he's there, and he's been there for a long time.
He has.
He's a depth player.
He's been a professional hockey player for almost 10 years now. He's been there.
Oh, and he's made an impact too. Yeah.
Yeah. Ron Francis. He's the GM of Kraken. And Kraken, to pronounce it correctly? Kraken?
Yeah.
Kraken.
Seattle Kraken. I think it's like a sea serpent or an octopus.
Come on, Steiny, you got to know what it is. You work for
I should know, but the only guy I can really ask is Ron, and I don't really want to be on the phone with him.
Well, that was my question. What does he do? Does he hand out a pamphlet like, all right, listen, boys, because there's been no games played for Seattle. There's no identity. Do you think in Ron's head he has an identity of what the team's going to represent, or is it Vegas? Let's bring these guys in and see what we have type thing. Is there a plan, or is it a?
They have a plan 100%. They don't always let us in on it, but they're pretty good guys that way. Because there's Dawson, there's Robert Cron, who just had a real good podcast. Somewhere in the States where people couldn't understand how methodical the whole process was and so forth. So I'm not necessarily in on all of that, but they lean heavily on our opinion. And they've got an idea, they're not looking for a whole bunch of little guys out there. If you're little, you better have some gifts, you better have an impact, and they want some big guys that have a good hockey sense. And it's all skill, skating, hockey sense, and compete. That's really what you're looking for.
Yeah. It was interesting. There was a clip this week of Kalar On Colorado, the defenseman?
Makar, yeah.
Makar, sorry. Did you see the clip? Do you know the clip I'm talking about? His shiftiness on the point, and he broke the guy's ankle?
Yeah, I think I saw that, and I saw another play where he rushed the puck, and he's just effortless skating.
And you know, how long's this podcast been going for? 10 minutes, and you've brought up skating, I think, 5 times. And when you talk about, you know, you as a scout and you're looking for people and what they can bring, and you mention a small guy, you better skate, you better have skill. It's interesting where the game is going. I don't want to say maybe less away from physical, but kind of less away from physical. I feel like a guy like you would be mad of me saying that, but because that's your
there's
role.
There's actually a trend. There's some bounce back from that.
Okay, what's the bounce back?
It is all the teams that have won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of teams that have the thought of, we're only drafting skill. That's all we're drafting. And then there's other people. We're not in that. I've been told, that's not what we're here for.
Okay.
You have to have skill, you have to have skating, but there's still a sense that the teams in the last X amount of years that have won the Stanley Cup were big, strong, heavy teams. So there's a lot of teams right now I think are doing their homework and saying, okay, are we on the right path here? Do we need, and you ask Toronto, you ask Brian Burke, all those guys, and even them, they need to have some muscle. They need to have some guys that can play, but don't get pushed around. And everybody says there's refs out there. Guys are getting run over all the time. And if they don't have any way of playing a robust game or a strong game or hard game, they're not. The playoffs doesn't seem to work out for them. So we're into that. We want guys with skill, but we also appreciate the fact of the size. And sometimes that means you're getting a regular season player that's going to be really good, and you want to be able to see, does that translate over to a good playoffs? And some people have said, I even asked the question one time, is going into this Canadian, has this maybe shone a light on, say, a Calgary, for instance? Okay, they're right up there in the standings, but this year they're struggling a little bit because this division is kind of a heavy division. There's a lot of rivalries, and maybe when you line up everybody's first 3 forwards, you're lining up McDavid, you're lining up some pretty big guys and can skate, and then you're lining up Gaudreau. Gaudreau's a great player, don't get me wrong. But 4 out of 7 series in St. Louis or 4 out of 7 series in Boston, that's how you got to think of your lining up. And I think there's some teams that might be a little more comfortable with having the bigger, stronger, skilled guy.
Do you think it's a divided league in a sense, or do you think every team feels this way? Because I look at Montreal, I've never seen a heavy set team, but then again, they haven't won the cup in I don't know how many years. Do you think it's a divided league, or do you think a lot of people are thinking the same way you're thinking?
I think
the cup, it's hard to prove,
Well, I think everybody is. I mean, you see Toronto go out and get Simmons. They went and got the defenseman from LA there last year. Yeah. So they're bringing in Thornton, and say what you want. There's presence there and respect, but yeah, you can't take a knife to a gunfight, So I think there's got to be a balance there. To get through the season, you need that skill and skating and so forth, and it needs to translate over to skill skating and all those little gamesmanship you see in the playoffs. I mean, they're playing for keeps in the playoffs. I mean, that's pretty. And you look at Tampa Bay. I mean, there's a lot of guys on that team like Hedman. I mean, he could have played another 3 series. Yeah. Some of the guys that other players played, like their bodies were shot after that.
Yeah.
So
that was a great playoffs last year.
Yeah, and again, they traded for Maroon at the end. So and that's what I try and tell some of the kids. I said, something. What is it you don't see? Well, hitting. Well, do something. Every person, and I'm so sick and tired of hearing these guys. Well, I'm a point of game guy. Belanger, he hits. He takes the body. Marchand takes the body. Who the hell are you not to? And people don't understand that finishing your checks all the time is a great asset. And it's just simple. It's a decision. Mm-hmm. You don't have to fight. You don't have to do anything. But if you're constantly, skating and getting checks, you're separating guys from the play and playing physical, then you're chiseling down at the other team. You're making your presence known. And that's what my biggest thing is. What I say to some of the kids is, you don't have to kill guys, but you just got to do something in every shift that's positive.
That gets you noticed in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The things that you're preaching right now, do you preach to your son?
There's not a person that doesn't say, "Oh God, I should have known that was your kid." I don't even know. I'm the Rolodex of words going through my mind now. It's inappropriate.
Can I tell you a funny story about your son the other day? So we're sitting in the SMU dressing room. I was there miking someone up, and he's injured right now. So he was getting that thing on his leg. I don't know what it was. So we're sitting there. I'm like, Steiny, like, what are you doing today? And he goes, nothing, just hanging out, probably going to play some video games. He goes, I'm playing NHL 21 right now. He goes, I'm this close to becoming a pro. I'm like, man, you're trying to be a pro in real life, not the video game. I goes, I know, but
Yeah,
I was losing it.
Well, he's a guy that, I mean, back
man.
in midget, I mean, he was so small, and, I didn't want to be the guy to break it to him that, you probably got 3 years left of any type of competitive hockey because he was so small.
Yeah.
And, I bred into him since the day he was born, probably, that I didn't want to hear his crying, but stick up for yourself, be independent and so forth. And that's really what's holding him in the game right now. I'd like to say, oh, my kid's great, he's got this and that. He does have some skill and so forth, but I mean, the reason he got drafted and the reason why there's any attention given to him right now is because of his physical game, and I wish I could say different. I wish I could say he's a playmaking centerman, 100-point guy, but he's not. He's picked a path, and if he's going to do that, that's not an easy field to plow if you're going to consistently play that way.
Yeah,
it's hard.
I feel like your body has to be prepared for that physical.
There's
Especially
there's going to be guys looking for you all the time, but at the same time, I can honestly say that when I looked around, I said, how's this kid going to end up prolonging his career? And that's going to be his compete level. And so it just got, I have my own little way of motivating him.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, but yeah, if you don't, stick up for yourself. It's a contact sport, and take advantage of that.
Yeah,
and that's the way it's pretty much gone. Now, he may be a little bit over that, but he's going to have to continue to do it if he wants to play.
Yeah, it just comes down to being a difference maker. I like everything that you're saying about how scouts and how GMs are just looking to, as long as you're making a difference. You don't have to be putting up 20 goals a year. You don't have to be doing a goal scorer role, as long as you're able to adapt at each level. I feel like that's the biggest thing. Like, you probably experienced that at SMU. A guy comes from the OHL top line, puts up 40 goals, and maybe he's on your roster at SMU. He's on the fourth line. Maybe there's an attitude change, but I feel like it's those guys that are just able to adapt. That's the key word, just adapt to their role.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some kids that have come to St. Mary's that again, maybe I should have handled them better, but, I just look at, if you're, we forecheck, first guy down, take the body. If you're F1, you don't take the body, whose fault's that? That's the way we play. If you don't want to do it, and there are guys that literally wonder why they've been, tossed aside or not looked at, and you think, well, it's not hard. You're easy to play against.
Yeah.
Make yourself hard to play against. It's hard to score goals. Well, there's so many other things you can do. Some guys would have 10 hits before they'd even get a shot on goal. Well, get those 10 hits. Get that. Play hard to get. Take time and space away. Do all those things. Yeah. And if you get everybody doing that, it's crazy what you can accomplish. And I think that's what we've been kind of proud of at St. Mary's. We've gone into some series where we weren't the favorite, but the guys, and we had good leadership in the room and so forth, they were able to kind of say, guys, set everything aside. We need everybody on the same page, play in the same way.
Yeah.
And that's the only way, I think.
Do you think the style of coaching has changed from when you coach to now? When I talk to, minor hockey league coaches, they say, when you're in the room, you have to have that censorship. You can't be saying certain things. And when I think back to my Pee-wee band and midget days, there was definitely times where, you got to let a guy know how you feel. Do you find, when you coached, you were in the right era for your time and your coaching style? Or do you think that you could still be doing it right now in today's game?
I think I was I'm a bit much at times, but part of that, I'd like to think that for the most part, if a guy played hard, I could rip a strip off him and, within look at him the next day or before he leaves practice, and, there could be a nod or something, let him know I just have to be like that. But, I'm not sure you can be quite as aggressive, and you really got to watch what you say, because there's a lot of things that are said and have been said in our era that, you don't mean any harm by, and it's just taken the wrong way, and that's certainly been something my players have joked about with me. But
you got guys like me coming to mic up. You're like, Belanger's here again.
Well, as soon as I see a mic, I mean, there's always guys that are going to have stories and so forth, and I don't profess to be the guy that was I was always caring, but I wasn't the guy that always came off easy. But I handpicked all the guys. I always felt that I had their best interests. But you got to push kids. I mean, you're talking about the kind of the volume of people that it takes to that are get into having coaches, and then you're trying to make it to the last 0.01%. Sometimes they need a little bit more than they need a real reality of life.
Not like intimidation, but a little intimidation. It's like, let's get going here. There's nothing wrong with intimidation. I don't think at that age.
No, and I've said it, and I'm trying to pick. I've been angry at Matt, my own son. I'm trying to think of examples where it's not acceptable.
Yeah,
it's not acceptable behavior. It's not acceptable way to play. It's not this. You're going to be remembered by this. But yeah, I think that the coaching has changed. I think there's a lot of coaches now that are looking in their rearview mirrors a little bit. And I think it's the right way to go, because in general, you were talking about the masses. We're talking about how collectively a community and take care of their kids and so forth like that. But again, when you start getting up to these higher levels, I don't think anybody, you got to leave, gender, race, everything, all that out, and a lot of other things. But you can't let your true feelings not be heard if you're trying to help a kid. So I guess you have to kind of reinvent a way of presenting it, I guess.
Has Noggs reached out to you at all and asked for advice in his role right now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He has. Yeah.
What are some questions he's asked you?
But recruiting questions. What do you think of this player? Is this a good idea? This kind of a theme in practice.
Cool.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of coaches, even the ones that compete against each other.
Yeah.
We talk.
Like in the same league, at the same time, like you'd have really.
Yeah. It's sometimes we're just venting, but I mean, in the big picture, you still got to get your guys to do it. But I've talked to some of the other coaches, and I said, yeah, we break our practices up here, and like last year, the guys all said, this is Tyler ran practices, and I said basically, run the practice, because he runs a great practice.
He does,
and he had music on, and he was doing this and that, and I came in the rink with my coffee a little late. They're all, I didn't think you were coming to the rink. And I said, well, I got to get out of the house.
That's the only reason you're here, just to get out of the house. Yeah, I got to go, honey. I'm out of here.
There's chores to do. But then you get there, and then I have to call the guys, and they'd be going, hey, Steiny, today we finally had fun in practice. You know what I mean? I said, good. You had fun today. I said, tomorrow's put on your buckles, because you're doing one-on-ones all day tomorrow. Yeah. You can't dodge it. You can present it all any way you want it.
Yeah.
But at one point, if you got to get bigger, stronger, faster, if you have to get better at something, you have to address that. Yeah. So, I'm learned to say maybe there's a day in practice you should put on some music, but, I just not what it's not what I do.
Yeah.
But it worked. The guys appreciate it. So that's where you have to kind of take some of this insight and roll with it, because kids are different, no question.
Do you miss it? Do you miss coaching?
Yeah, I actually do. I actually go to some games now, and it's kind of neat. I'll go to a game, and it's easy to pick out everybody's issues of their team. I mean, you could do that with all of my teams as well. But then you go to you go watch a team like Charlottetown or someone playing with Jimmy Halton, and you go, that guy gets a lot out of his team. They just all on the same page. They're all just like moving parts, but it doesn't impede their skill. You know what I mean? They still get a chance, but you just see them all working together. And I think what a treat for a kid that wants to get drafted to a program, spend 3 or 4 years there and get better. You really start realizing how much of coaching can make an impact on a kid's career, even
at that age, especially.
Oh yeah,
Junior.
Just the good habits, and just how to like, some of these kids have never been talked hard to or down to. They've never faced any adversity. Fill the net, and then all of a sudden they get cut from a team, and they're stand on your doorstep, and first time you kind of get in their face, they don't know how to take it. They really don't. So, and then there's other kids that just have faced adversity their whole life, and it doesn't matter. They're there to play. They're there to play, and they're there to learn. But there's a lot of different tactics in the whole process.
Definitely. There's coaches out there in my life that have helped me. I'm not saying I've gone through a lot of adversity in my childhood, but, when I hit that band and midget age, when, hockey is my life and I want to make the major junior level, and, looking back on it, some coaches, you think they're being a dick. You go home, you fuck Jesus Christ, you motherfucker. And then, looking back today, a 29-year-old man, I look at those moments and they help me today. There's not really a lot that can, there's things that throw me off my game, sure, but it'd be a lot worse if I didn't get yelled at and called a motherfucker every now and then. It's hard to realize at that time, but
I've always said to the guys, when I come in here, it's up to, said to my captains, I said, guys, you know what your real job is to translate my profanities and my horribly presented speech.
Yeah.
Just present it to them the way you think it is. We had a bad first. I didn't see anything, so you call them all out. And the guys would be going, well, he's a dick, this and that. Well, guys, you're playing against this team. We've had 6 shots. They have 18. You beat them handily the last 3 times. Look in the mirror. So I'm just coming in here, guys. I've exhausted everything. I come in here and I could buy you French fries. I could tell you I'm going to give you a free pop after the game. I've tried everything. So it almost seemed at times, and I've said this, guys, the worse I treated some of my teams, not all the time, but not having a real great sense of humor on game day and so forth, the better they played. And when I go in and practice and I'm loose and everybody's loose, then they were loose.
Yeah.
So I kind of said, you guys got to make up your mind which Trevor you want. You want the asshole?
Yeah.
Then you got to play well for me to loosen up. But when I loosen up, you do too.
Yeah. Could you tell this from warm up? If you go into the rink and you're being the hard ass Trevor compared to going into the rink being the loosey goosey Trevor, could you tell in warm up?
I have.
Yeah.
But can I say that was? But also times I've thought, okay, these guys are really ripe for the picking, and we've come up with a really good effort too. So sometimes there's no rhyme nor reason. But again, when collectively, if there's an 84-game schedule, or in our case a 30-game schedule, I guess my biggest thing was, and I had this at times, you didn't have to have 30, and then before the game, after the first half second, you didn't have to have 3 times 30, 90 pregame speeches to get your guys going.
Oh, sorry.
Because you got a dressing room of guys or a leadership in the dressing room that makes it unacceptable to have those. I shouldn't even get to me. Your captains, your leadership group should step in. And at times when I've had that, I felt we had a little bit of it last year. I felt that I could go in and say less because I really felt that dressing room wanted it, and they knew what they had to do. They knew they had a bad period. But there's other times when you'd have to go in and literally give them a period. They came the same way. You blast them.
Yeah.
Take away their timeout after the game. Say, they're not going out or whatever, and all of a sudden they come up with a better effort.
Yeah.
But I think it's passable. I think players got to start putting that on their own shoulders. It's their career.
Yeah. When you're talking about there a second ago, okay, when you go in and you're a bit of a hard ass and then they play how you want them to play, is that the same thing as what you were just talking about with the coach in Charlottetown and you see them all playing together aligned? Is there a difference between the team playing how you want them to play compared to this team is in sync of how I want them to play? Is there a difference?
Well, I've talked to players and I've talked to a lot of players, and they usually have to go through the experience, but when they're evaluating their coaches after everything's over, it's amazing how many of them will say, that guy was a rotten bastard, but it was his way, it was everything. But then they realize later that those are the dynamics. That's what the lead dog does. That's what the lead of anybody. You gotta get 20 guys motivated to do things they don't want to do. And how you do that is your own way, but kissing their ass doesn't necessarily work with kids today, because their whole life they've had their ass kissed. Their parents kissed their ass. The parents have created this problem, and then there's other guys that just don't need that. So it's hard. It's hard to get in behind them, and then a guy like Jimmy Halton, for instance, I know there's guys that just think, oh God, he's going to lose his marbles. Or you hear the guys in the press box. Sorry, I'm kind of get my thought back here.
Oh, go for it.
And they've said, he's going to scorch the paint right off the walls in there. They know Jimmy. Yeah. They know who Jim Halton is. Yeah. Jim Halton is not going to wait till after the game and lose the game. He's going to salvage it right there, put his foot down. So I'm sure there's guys that thought he is a hard ass, but it's not after they're done. They go, man, he was a good coach. And then they'll talk about the guy that was the great guy, and did you win anything? And they go, no. And then, what he used to say to you? Well, not much. He just leaned on the glass and nice try. Well, then guys realize, gee, that was a mistake. That's not who I wanted. At the time, they thought that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
But, I really do think you need to, again, make people do things they want to do in pursuit of that goal. And once they get the goal, they look back and go, gee, that wasn't the best ride there, but I feel
Yeah.
really good about it. And if they fail at it easily, then maybe they'll look at that. But it's again, people, it's hard to focus on doing things that cause you short-term pain, thinking you're going to get long-term gain.
It's like when you talk about this, I think of oddly enough, like an office experience. Like, you know, this company I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to motivate. It's interesting how the things that you can get away with, you know, in a sport compared to an office setting. And I'm not saying you're in an office setting, but you're a scout. I'm sure you're sending tons of emails. You're trying to, you know, get information from that guy in Sweden by Tuesday so you can look at it, so you can get it back to Jim Nolans. I don't know, anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how it's a lot more difficult to translate that passion and that line to the professional setting in an office. It's a lot different. At least I find. I can't yell at Mark right now and tell him to pick at the fight. You know what I mean? I'm joking. Look, see what I mean? He gets mad.
But when you can be like that, but I think it comes down to, like, I know right now that the leadership of a Ron Francis,
Yeah,
and Robert Cron, and even the guy that, you know, my ex-player, Mike Dawson, who I have the utmost respect for, but I was his coach. I was a coach when he was a player. And I know that they don't have to tell me that.
tell you what.
They don't have to sit me down and tell me, because these guys are at a level that if you don't do the job, you get fired. And
It's a
yet,
privilege
yeah,
to be
so,
where you are.
Yeah, so if you if you took a kid in hockey and just cut him, why'd you cut? You'd have to communicate with them. Well, we're at a level right now, it's pretty clear what my job is to do. I have to know every Quebec League player like the back of my hand and be able to compare him to other guys. Well, they're nice to me, but I know for a fact I respect them. And if I don't get the job, you know, if they fire me, you know, after the draft and say, hey, we appreciate what you've done, you know, or even if they just say we don't need you, I'll know in my mind, I'm going to say I didn't do a good enough job, but respect them because they treat me well.
Okay.
They give me every resource.
Yeah.
They give me every opportunity. You do whatever you got to do. So they've rid me of my excuses to fail.
Yeah.
So if I fail or don't do a good job, it's on me. And I think that, you know, that's being a professional and that's being older. With the kids today, it's a little bit different. But the office setting, that can be like that. But in hockey, it just seems like it's got to be a little bit more aggressive.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of people that are in the business have played before. You know, like the NHL is such a small world, or not even NHL, the hockey community.
Well, yeah, you can't compare an office
to.
That's what they're trying to do. I think everybody's trying to get to the point where when you go into a dressing room, it's an office setting.
Yeah, exactly.
And at that point, I don't want to even be involved with the game.
Yeah.
That's why guys play hockey, is to get out of that office setting, to be with the, you know, whether it's, you know, the girls are being with the girls and playing, and they can do what then guys can be with the guys. But there's got to be that element of.
That's why you go to the NHL, so you don't have to sit in an office.
Yeah,
that's why you can dye your hair blonde. That's why you can do all these crazy shit. That's why that's the perk.
Yeah, you don't at the pro level. You don't have to be on your best behavior. You're playing a pro sport. People are paying for you to hit, in hockey, maybe to fight, to compete, to run, to overpower the opponent and so forth. It's not an office setting, but they're trying, you know, in the world today, everybody's trying to bring it in to be like that. And that's what's going to hurt, I think.
I had this conversation, I think with my grandfather, maybe 3 years ago. Maybe it was my dad. I forget who it was. And it's kind of a knock to our business about the NHL and how, and to a point, I agree with whoever, I think it was my dad who was saying it. There's too many cameras and there's too many mics and there's not enough privacy in the NHL. And, you know, I get my business. I like to go behind the scenes. I like to mic up guys. I love to do all this stuff because it builds influence and it's a great business model. But I think in some aspects, I kind of agree with there's a little bit too much. What do you think about that?
100%. If you're telling me that, you know, these guys collectively, I mean, social media's.
But I'm not talking about social media.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I am a little.
Well,
but
I
you know
just
exactly
mean,
what
if a guy's
I mean.
in his dressing room, and says something and the media hear it, you know, like there could be an interview going on over by the guy's stall, and, you know, some other guy says something, happens to be on the picked up. That to me is completely unfair. I mean, it's like going into your sanctum and everything you say in here, turn the mics off. Well, if the mics didn't turn on and you said something that was a little offside to your buddy, you know, do you deserve to fry publicly for it? But that's the fear for a lot of the athletes. I mean, these athletes are, yeah, they're nervous, and because like you say, everybody just wants a story on them. There's got to be some safe place for them.
I remember watching the Montreal Canadiens actually had a great show. I think it was called 24. What was it? 24 CH. Great show. And there's a couple scenes where Prest, he gets a concussion and he has to go back into the room to get his teeth looked at or something for his jaw, and the camera's right there. And I remember that was one of the incidents. I was like, wow, the camera's right there. Same thing. Gallagher had his thumb almost chopped off. Camera right there. And I was just thinking, I was trying to put myself in his skates. Like, what would my reaction be? Would I be nervous to say, get the fuck out of here because Montreal might trade me or, think wrongly of me because I don't want the camera in here? Or what would be running through my head? I try to put myself in that situation. It just didn't feel, I don't know.
I look at the politics that you've seen gone on here with the U.S. and everything, and you can see that it doesn't matter what side of the table you sit on. You voice your opinion, you get attacked.
Yeah.
So it's not fun when you're in the limelight. You know what I mean? Like, I get thrown out of a couple games last year, and I got everybody knows. Like, I'm answering to my mom, I'm answering to my aunt, I'm answering my buddies down in the, that phone up. What'd you do, stupid Steiny again, right? What'd you do? I'm going, how does everybody know? But it just does. Every mistake you made is out there.
Yeah.
And it's certainly a different life. I mean, you even go and look at a kid's Facebook page.
Yeah.
And if every time you look at a Facebook, a kid's crushing 12 beers, you may want to stay away from them, right?
Have you done that? Have you looked?
I've looked at everything, and when I scratch, I mean, I'm being paid, so I'm going to get the answers no matter what. I mean, I'm not going to take your name forward if I don't know exactly what you're like, and make sure there's no bad habits there and so forth, and what you really like. And it doesn't always have to be an incident either. It doesn't have to be the kid's doing this or doing that. It's just, what type of kid is he?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of teams that don't believe as much in the interview, and I know that these guys they do. They basically will say, if you don't take this kid out for dinner, no draft.
Oh,
They're basically saying, I need you to. You're going to bat for him.
Yeah.
And that's really your strength. Like, there's, we've got I bring up a kid like Henman didn't get signed. I question that. It's not, but I like the player. He's got hockey written all over him, hockey player written all over him. And, I think you can say, I know that kid. So if there's any chance for me to ever go to bat for him, I would, because I love the way he plays hockey. I know him as a person. I know that if you do vouch for him, a kid like that, he's going to wear that. Every day he's going to sit down here and go, people did a favor for me to get me here. I'm not going to let them down. I want this. And then there's other kids that just go, hey, it's cool. I got to try out. And, that's it. So, yeah, you got to know your people.
Do you think that your relationship, how long have you been playing hockey for? I don't even, coaching, how many years?
I'm pretty much 55 now.
So you probably know everyone in the game. Close to it. Like,
if you don't know them personally, they know who you are. There's a lot of guys that I say, I've never met him, but you don't have to. I know enough about him to know he's a good coach to go to, or what he's like. People talk, and it's people get reputations. I'm not saying you should stick to that, but usually where there's smoke, there's fire.
How much does that help knowing everyone? Not everyone, but how much does that help knowing people within the game to have an honest conversation with?
Huge. Just who you are. I've never spoke to Patrick Roy before. I phoned him up about some of his players, a couple around the league.
Love it.
I'm expecting a guy to be kind of standoffish, this and that.
Yeah.
No, but he was at a car wash, and I couldn't get him. He wanted to keep talking, and you could just see the passion coming out of him. So, Ellie, you've heard about him being difficult, this and that. Good. That's what people say about a lot of people, but he knows his hockey. Everybody knows he does. He knows, if you had a kid, you'd want him to go play there. And not maybe, and I say this, maybe this is wrong, but maybe not a couple moms don't want their son to go play for him, but every dad does. I can make a man out of my kid, you know what I mean? And he will. He's not a bad guy. Like, he doesn't teach the wrong things. He's just been there and knows what it takes. And he's not going to let you fail unless it's your decision. He's gonna do everything he can do within his powers to get you to do what he thinks is right. And sometimes, that doesn't sit right with people, but certainly appreciate if somebody put that much time in on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's talk about perks of the job, Talk about Sonia, you put a good word in, he's there. You talk about getting to call up Patty Waugh for a nice conversation. There's little perks within the job that just,
you get nervous. You know what I say? When you take a guy like Sonia, like I don't look at that as
that's a.
But yeah, a lot of people think of it like that, and I get it. But he did himself the favor.
know.
He did himself the favor. He's the kind of guy that stays in contact. He's the guy that's always looking to get better. And then I go watch him play, and it's just, he's on the bench probably just going, what does the coach want me to do right now? What does he want me to do that I can just make a choice and do?
But it must feel good knowing that you have an IQ in hockey, that you're so respected within the game that you can just. I'm not taking anything away from Sans. I'm just saying it must be nice for you to have a little bit of input and someone take that to heart and go, okay, I trust what Steiny says. It must feel good.
Yeah, it does, and it's not free. Like
I know.
And like I say, is I've made my mistakes, but you sometimes think I guess all you can really do is be honest and just hope to God you're not dumb.
Yeah.
But that's all I can say I've been, and that's all I really try and do, because there's lots of times you have to, I've been forced to say good things about a player, but I've also been at the same time in a position where I could not tell the guy I was talking to, asking for the reference, that kid is going to help him, because I don't want, my buddy of mine phoning me up and saying, hey, you got to take this kid, down at St. Mary's there a couple of years ago. But you know what you're getting yourself into. If I take this kid on your word and it doesn't work out, he's into a lease. He's like, his whole life's changed.
Never thought of
it's
that.
funny when you say that. Then the guy will go, well, he made me not a first, but he'll be a good depth player. Well, by the time the conversation's down, you're just going, I can't take this kid.
Yeah.
And he thinks he might be a little bit mean, not doing him a favor, but, you're saving a whole lot of heartache.
I never thought of that. You might have kids, a wife. I never thought of that. That's true. That's a whole life you're moving.
I'll be honest. I've had to give I've had to give my own kid a bad reference, or just not a bad reference, but if somebody says is this, I don't think he's ready for it.
Yeah.
But what good does it do if I, just stand there all summer and go, I got my son here and he's going to be, there's his destination. Well, as soon as he gets there, everything's going to go to crap. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to kind of see how it translates. Is my selling an apple as an apple, or am I getting an apple for an orange?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's cool. Are you going to get to be in the interview room at the draft? Do you know yet?
I have no idea.
But there's a possibility.
There's a possibility,
Cool.
And I think that would be neat.
Yeah.
I'm sure I won't say much. Usually by that they've got a list down.
Okay.
And I actually asked Mike Dawson this morning. I said, "Do you ever get to the point where at the draft table and you see you've got your list, but you still just call an audible?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, we like to not think that. We like to think our list is our list is our list."
Yeah.
But there's certain times when you realize when they take the guys, your intention could be to get this many forwards and this many D. But because of the way your list goes and what the other teams take and leave you may have taken three.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
3 defensemen or 4 defensemen when you got thinking, well, we got room. So that's a time when an audible might be charged or sent. And I, you've heard stories of one of the scouts on a break after each round goes up and fires some French fries in him, and he sees a kid, and the kid's waiting there to be drafted, and you go, "You're waiting to be drafted?" And you go, yeah, I'll do anything. And all of a sudden you just go, "Guys, did we ever talk about this kid? I saw him in the French fry." Yeah. But there's something, and that's what's a lot of it is going with your gut. And I have gone with my gut a lot.
Yeah.
And
has it worked out?
Well, I went with it with Rapace.
What's his story before he went to Smeal?
His story was he went to a college on some he got a scholarship he was waiting for, but I guess he had to upgrade his course or something, so he went to a college, and that meant his clock started ticking.
Okay.
And I don't know, but he came here as a walk-on and left here as a stud player and my captain.
Yeah. Mic'd up a high button too.
Yeah, I took a chance on Sean O'Donnell from and Troy Ryan.
You took a shot. I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. Troy Ryan convinced me of him. He says, "Take him. You'll never regret it." And here the kid is. He's ended up playing. He's played.
So was he in Pictou?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I was done. At one point you just think there's someone looking out after you, and the stars there because you got Troy Ryan going in. You love him, man. You're making a mistake if you take him. If you don't take him, make a mistake. If he goes somewhere else, you'll regret it.
Do you think Troy's calling you because he knows the style of game that you like to preach?
Probably.
Do you think did he fit into your mold?
Yeah. But just as much, I'm sure if I hadn't even gone to each of the other teams, but I don't know that part of it. But he pushed him on me, and he put his reputation on the line for me, and I respect the hell out of him, so I just said, I'll take him, and the rest is history. But I've gone on my gut and made some bad decisions too, but it's really good to know that, you go back and say, what was that? What was that feeling in my gut? Like, what was it? You can't put your finger on it, but if you get the same one on another player, sometimes you think, I got to go with this. That's the exact same feeling I had. And there's a couple players in the Quebec League now I feel a little bit like that, Can
you give me some names? I guess you can't.
Something? Yeah, I don't like. There's a kid like this Ben Boyd kid, big kid in Charlottetown. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And there's a few others. I just mentioned him because I get laughing. He's just a big kid. He's just really raw, but there's just something about him that you just think, I like that kid, and he's project him in 5 years, and he could be a real hard guy to play against.
What do you like about him? Tell me. Like, what do you see about the guy that you like? He's a big body. He's fat. What do you see?
Tell me what to do, coach.
So
and he'll do it.
Jump
and
how high
obvious.
type. Okay, yeah.
You tell him play physically, plays physically. You tell him, that the small parts of the game. He might get 7 or 8 minutes a game. Well, guys don't get drafted usually getting 7 or 8 minutes a game. But he's coming. He's like 6'3", 6'4", well over 200. He's a big, strong kid. And I think people automatically just get into oh, he's not very good. He's big. He's slow. He's dumb. Guys like that. And then you watch him, and no, he's coming along. And then you start seeing. I've had 3 to 5 weeks off watching, and you see improvement. Mm-hmm. Some guys that are doing really well offensively, you don't see any improvement in their game. You don't see any change. So it's nice to see a kid trending up.
Interesting.
And there's lots of those guys. So, I don't think I'm speaking out of church or giving away secrets. Let's face it, if my first year as a scout, I got to think that every other scout's on the guys that I'm on to, but or thinking about, and even more.
Yeah.
But there are some guys out there that just catch your eye with something, and
cool.
Then you just start scratching, right? And then, watch more games, talk to the kid, and you don't know what his story is.
Well, that was my next question, watching the game. Like, are you allowed in Scotiabank Arena right now? Or are you watching from a laptop? What's your situation?
No, I can go to games in Nova Scotia.
Can't go to Charlottetown, though?
No, can't go there. Things might open up a little bit, but there's talk about the 3 teams in New Brunswick coming over here and kind of setting up shop in Halifax for 3 games, and then to Cape Breton, and then say PEI or somewhere, where else for 3 games type thing. So they're playing inside the bubble.
So they're just going to move here and stay in a hotel or something?
Yeah, like for 3 weeks and play 9 games type thing inside of 3 weeks.
So is there like a playoff? Like, whoa.
Everything could blow up. Like as soon as you get, all of a sudden the cases go up, they're just going to pull it. So they want a playoffs. They're trying to work these bubbles as hard as they can.
Yeah.
The Western League, Ontario. We're very fortunate. The Quebec League's actually playing right now, and that's, and it's kind of good that they, when they think of a lot of guys right now, local guys are doing some scouting for pro teams right now, because they realize the best intel they're getting is from the Maritimes. The rest of it is really guessing.
So there's a lot of scouts right here in Nova Scotia.
They can't, inside here. So
what do you mean by that?
Well, John Sim's been hired. You know what I mean? You got Jimmy Midgley's been hired. You've got,
I see what you're saying.
Inside, from here,
okay,
because they realize we can't get people in here. So what we're not as much projecting as the guy that lives in Ontario right now. The last time he saw a kid play was before the break was in March, and the kid's 17. Well, now you're trying to draft him, whether you put him in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, and you're going, we haven't got a lot of looks at this kid.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more looks right here.
So you're saying that there's a possibility that this year's NHL draft could be heavy Maritime based? Possibility.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They certainly have intel on them from the years before, but it's just hard to tell where they're trending unless they get a 24 games. Yeah. Now there's talk of a draft in December, pushing it to December so that they get the 203 draft is what we call it.
The what? The 203?
The 203s are the group getting drafted now.
Okay. So
if they get a chance to play the first half of the next season, they could have a draft in December during the World Junior break, maybe.
That'd be sick.
It would be, but there's a lot of headaches and a lot of things that could go wrong there too. And then there's been talk of literally having the 2 drafts in the same month in June, just having the first draft,
of the 03 or 02.
Push it a year, and then have them 2 weeks apart, and.
So 2 7-round drafts is what you're saying,
exactly.
Okay.
And what you got to remember is sometimes everybody goes, well, it's just easy, and other people say, well, just go to a 19-year-old draft year and just have your 18-year-olds can get drafted. You can get drafted an 18-year-old in the first round, but that's it. And then he can play if he can, but the other guys get drafted at 19. But see, you have a problem. There's how many deals are out there that have been made in the last few years that have to do with the 20 draft, June 20 draft, third draft choice in a trade. They have to have those different drafts because those are.
Oh, sorry. I understand what you mean.
Those are commodities.
Yeah, sorry. That went over my head.
If you missed a draft or you did something,
Yeah.
that's a commodity.
Yeah.
So you could say, well, I didn't think I was giving up that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's so many things that nobody thinks of, and I didn't either, that you just, I get it. So I just kind of, my hands are up here like this. I give up. You guys tell me what. All I know is I'm responsible, and I'm going to do everything I can have to have my guys properly rated, and then you do it with you have to. But it gets really complicated.
I'm thinking back to my age when I was never close to getting drafted to the NHL, but I could imagine there could be some frustration with these kids right now. You're talking to them. Do you sense a little bit of frustration in their voice because of what's going on? Because they've worked their whole life for this moment to be drafted, and it's in a gray area. Do you notice the frustration?
It's past that. I think we really need to start preparing ourselves for kids that if things don't work out, these kids may be saying, so that was because of COVID, that whole time off.
Yeah.
I think the
mental
there's
health
a mental
aspect,
health factor here, and it is real. There's no question it is. I mean, I just got off the phone with Balmas. Balmer was
did you?
making you guys must have tweeted out.
Where's he at?
I don't know. But he's on the other end of his phone telling me that not to wear a certain jacket because I look like it's a life jacket, and making fun of me and stuff. But you take a guy like that. I mean, the kid lives in the rink. All he wants to he just wants to score goals. Give him a place to go and score goals. That's what he wants to do. These other kids are the same.
Put a cot in the rink.
Yeah. There's just, you think of those and there's all them. Then you think of a kid in his draft year that's just can look at his mom and go, this is awful. Like, I want to play so bad. They're just sitting at home doing nothing. And then they're taking, like my own son. He's just pulling his hair out. So there's times I want to go down and knock him out. But I mean, you got to think, what's he going through? He just wants to play. And he just, put it this way, all he wants to do is go to school and play hockey. So my thought is they're both things I support, but especially school. He wants to get there and do school because he knows he gets his hockey with it. They don't want to be at home, and that's what people have to remember. These kids do not want to be at home. Parents can say, it's not complain all they want. You get a little break, they don't have to go to work, but you're taking, think of taking hockey away from you when you're 17 and 18. Like it's
your identity. It's more than just what you do. It's who you are.
I came from a very rural area where I didn't put, I played with one association. I went to school in another, and it was just all over the place.
Yeah.
I truly was lost without my hockey. That was my identity. Shouldn't have been that way. But I mean, I was just nobody when I went to, started going to high school. I'm in there. I'm just this little tiny guy at that point in my life. And, nobody knew anything. But, hey, you're a hockey player. You play for this. Yeah, it gave you something.
Yeah.
But now it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then kids think they're regressing. You know what I mean? They think, I'm getting worse. I'm doing this. There's just so many mind monsters right now for them.
Yeah.
And there's enough mental health issues out there right now that you don't need more of them, and especially with these guys, because I like to think of these athletes at all this, they're kind of thoroughbreds, so they're even more temperamental sometimes.
Definitely.
You think of even somebody that just, is a track athlete or is doing whatever and can't do their thing. I mean, it's devastating.
You think of the parents, too, that dedicated a lot of their life. A parent that has a kid in Bantam or midget or junior hockey, they've dedicated thousands of hours, thousands of dollars. It's an investment, 100%. It's an investment in your kid, and to have that, I'm not saying it's going to pay off for every parent, but to not have an opportunity for your kid to shine at the highest level after those dollars, after those hours, after those road trips. You look. I don't know if you're heavy on Twitter, but Twitter's a garbage can on fire right now when it comes to hockey parents and in a lot of aspects of that. There's a lot of frustrated people that aren't being heard.
Yeah, I can tell you that I've had people. Well, we don't need to mention their name, but I mean, they've had a kid in hockey and their kid got hurt, and it was a big injury, and the kid was all right. The parents were just crushed. I mean, they know that they have got damage protection. They know that their kid's disappointed. Everything they threw in, even a little selfish, but your son is your son, your daughter's your daughter. You do everything you can do to have them have that hobby that keeps them young and positive and so forth. And when you see that taken away, you just got to look you look for signs. You're almost looking for signs of, is this kid depressed? How's he handling it and stuff? So it's really hard.
Yeah. When you talk about identity as a hockey player, and you said when you left and you lost that identity, did you find that when you were done at SMU, transitioning to Seattle, was there a little period of there, I need that identity, I need to be back in the game? Was there a little bit of that there?
No, I don't think. I always say the press can, I've experienced both sides of it. I've been treated like gold in Halifax. I really have. Yeah. There's been other places I haven't. I was a high draft choice and, got injured and didn't make it for this or that. So you take the good with the bad. So I'll be honest, there's days that, before I got this gig, I was sitting at home and I think this is awesome. I don't have to read about me. I don't have to read that I'm a jerk. I don't have to read that I lost a game or won a game. But I can see how being a high profile person, at whatever level, I could see how sometimes you think, I wish I had it back. But I've seen both sides to it. You got to take the good with the bad.
Okay. Yeah. Good answer. Well, how much time are we at right now, Mark?
An hour.
Are we at an hour? Yep. Okay. Are you good for like another 10 minutes?
Good,
sure?
As long as you want.
After everything we just talked about, we talked about the kids' frustration. We talked about you being a scout. We talked about general managers, what they're looking for in order to be a player that makes an impact on their team. We have what's our fan base? 18, 35. So we got some junior players in here that listen to the podcast, and they all want to make that second jump. They all want to, they want to be a professional hockey player. From the outside looking in as a scout, and if you had to give a little bit of advice to, let's say that third line guy on a junior team that maybe isn't getting his ice time and he thinks he can be a little bit more of an asset to his team, but he's just not able to show it. What's your advice for that guy right now? Not even a junior, midget and bantam, but that guy on the third, fourth line. What's your advice for that guy? Or girl?
Well, yeah. I can. I think the only reason I think it's a good question right now, and I'll be a little bit more specific, is because I actually touched on it. I go to games all the time, and it doesn't matter how many, you could be a 20-goal scorer. Well, if you play 60 games, that means there's 40 games or more that you didn't score in. So what was your value of that game? And I always say that, finishing your checks, everybody starts going, well, all you care about is being tough. Well, it's not. It's the details of the game. It's taking a guy's time and space away. Everybody can work harder, and my biggest thing would be just finish your checks, do things fast, that's what they're looking for, and the physical part, I just look at it, I see too many guys, I guess, that have made it through that hard work. Well, that hard work, that main ingredient in everybody, well, it's just fighting. No, it's not. It's being physical. It's being like a Sonya that just goes out and does whatever the coach says. Stop trying to be who you want to be, and be what the team needs right now. And if you see something lacking, if the coach is out there getting mad at everybody for being soft, well, then stand up. Nobody's asking you to fight. What they're asking you to do is be harder to play against. Finish your hits. Put more into your forechecks and your back checks. Kids will come back and go pissed off because they didn't play. And you just there's your in stat.
Yeah.
Your legs are straight in the neutral ice. You don't work. You don't forecheck. You don't back check. What do? You wait for your teammate to get you the puck. If he doesn't, then you think it's his fault that you didn't score. So I'm really firm in that fact. Everybody can play a fairly physical game. Everybody can pressure. And that's what I think. That's what the game's about.
Can you give a guy in the NHL right now, maybe the style of game that you're talking about, maybe someone listening can watch more of their games and the style that they play? Is there anyone in the NHL that you can think of?
Well, I always use the Bergeron. Because I think let's take. Are you as good as Bergeron? Well,
no.
Okay, well, no. Okay, well, then I want you to watch him tonight, and I guarantee you, he doesn't go down, with one stick in his hand on his forecheck. He's a superstar. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's down hard, and he gets a lot of points. He's down. He takes the body. He competes. If you get goals out of that, that's great. But if you don't get goals, you get a momentum. You become an energy player. You become, somebody that provides momentum and can take minutes away. But if you're going to stand around, you can't have everybody that just wants to pile the wood and just everybody score the goals. So try and create something that's different that coaches want. And 9 times out of 10, that for me is just playing really intense, being hard to play against. And I think everybody can be hard to play against. I don't think everybody can be a good fighter, and that's not where we're going with this. But there's nothing pisses me off more than watch a kid like a seagull, guy gives him a head fake and, he goes off in the other direction, guy stays there with the puck. I mean, you could have had your whole team behind you. All you need to do is level that guy, create a turnover. Instead, you're out of position for F1, and now they're marching up the ice in a 5-on-4. And you wonder what you can do. But they don't want to take that information, a lot of them. So I don't know if that helps, but I say it to my own kid till I'm blue in the face, and, there's games that he'll do all right, but I'll say, you're a bit of a seagull, bud, a couple times, right? Just a couple of flybys. It's ducks and eagles. That's
all right. Steiny, you're the man. Thanks for coming on here, dropping some knowledge. I appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to the killer.
Well, I just wanted to say that it can't be on TV, but yeah, Kevin Kaminsky's a legend in this town, and he's sent me his killer T-shirt, Killer Hockey 23. But there's a guy right there that made himself a hockey player and made himself an NHL hockey player through nothing but courage. No. He's not an athletic guy. I can probably sit here and make fun of him. The worst body in hockey, but he fought every tough guy. He was everybody's favorite, and he probably extended his time in every organization just because when you looked across the room, you looked at a guy like Kevin Kaminsky and you said, I hate to say it, he'll do more than any human possible to win this game. He'll sacrifice more than anything. Doesn't matter. And that's what he was like. Every single day that he showed up at the rink, that's what he was like. So
love it.
That's what the team is built on.
Love it. All right, Steiny, thanks again for joining the show. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure, man.
All right, everyone listening, thank you very much for listening. Tuesday, beginning of the week, hump days tomorrow. Have fun, work hard. Listen to Steiny, work hard, be gritty, do anything to win. We're out. Peace.